But first, it is a movement that has come to prominence in just a year's time. The so-called Tea Party movement has gained national attention with its small government, anti-tax message. When Republican Scott Brown won Ted Kennedy's Massachusetts Senate seat, the Tea Party movement claims some of the credit. So what exactly is the Tea Party movement, and how big a role will it play in the upcoming midterm elections? For some answers, I'm joined by Steve Stevlik, coordinator for the Tea Party Patriots in Chicago. Mr. Stevlik is also organizing a downtown rally on April 15th called the Chicago Tax Day Tea Party. John O'Hara, author of A New American Tea Party. That's a book chronicling the history and principles of the Tea Party movement. Richard Baer, the chief political correspondent and co-founder of American Thinker, a conservative website that draws 150,000 viewers a day. And Ed Lasky, the news editor and also a co-founder of the American Thinker website. And gentlemen, welcome to Chicago tonight. First, John O'Hara, just a bit of a primer. What exactly is the Tea Party movement for people who have heard it alluded to, but don't know what it stands for?
It's a broad grassroots uprising with folks that are concerned with the radical expansion of the size and scope of government.
Steve Stevlik, what would you add to that in terms of when people ask you to describe what the Tea Party movement is?
I think it's a group of people that have never been active in politics before, and they're just tired of yelling at the TV, and they're decided to have their voices heard.
Were you one of those people, not active in politics, yelled at the TV a lot?
I was yelling here on actually Chicago Tonight back in September. I challenged Senator Dick Durbin during a healthcare town hall, got invited to speak at some tea parties, and now I'm leading one.
Ed Lasky and Richard Baer, the two of you have been covering the Tea Party movement. At its essence, how would you describe it?
I think it is a movement of people who have not been particularly involved in politics, who are quite fearful of what $4.5 trillion in accumulated debt over the period of 2009, 2010, 2011 means to a country. When you start getting levels of accumulated debt by the end of the year 2020, according to the president's plans, compared to gross domestic product, we're on a path to financial ruin.
People might say that the movement had its genesis here in Chicago with Rick Santelli's rant on CNBC a year ago. Is there any truth to that?
Oh, absolutely. What Mr. Santelli said on television he wasn't the first person to say it, but the fact that he was a public figure getting up there and saying that what the government was doing with these bailouts of these failed corporations and irresponsible individuals was a moral hazard, that it was wrong. And that really awakened something in a lot of folks, as Steve was saying, who may have just been sort of sitting on their couch yelling at their televisions, who said, look, I'm not going to take it anymore, and they're literally marching on the streets today.
Steve, when something like this, when somebody strikes a match and it just ignites this kind of momentum, one could argue that it taps into something that had been around for some time. And in doing research, which frankly I had not done prior to today, some people in the Tea Party movement have a gripe with George W. Bush as well. Tell me about that.
And that's absolutely true. The bailout started under Bush. Even the auto bailout happened under the Bush administration. And I would hazard to say that I think there would be a Tea Party movement even if John McCain had won the presidential election in 2008. Yeah, because it's just the government's expanding regardless of who's in office. I think the deficit actually increased faster under Bush than it did under Clinton.
How would you assess the impact that Scott Brown's win had in Massachusetts? And do you think Democrats are changing their strategy as a result of that win, for example?
Oh, I think in many ways they are. I think one of the great things about the Massachusetts election, it shows that Tea Partiers can do more than party. They can politic, too. And they can make pragmatic political decisions, like getting behind Scott Brown, who was not a perfect candidate across the board, but on the issue of the day, Obamacare, he said he was going to stop it. And they sent him to Washington, and they said, go and do it, but we'll be watching. And, you really hit on this when we were talking about George W. Bush and how the bailout started under the Bush administration. A big part of this movement is a movement away from partisanship and from personalities and a movement back towards principles, and I think that's a very healthy thing.
Steve, in spite of the fact that you've talked about how there is, it's a nonpartisan group, I would venture to guess that many people think that the Tea Party is primarily filled with, quote, right-wing fanatics. How do you respond to that characterization?
I would respond by saying that couldn't be farther from the truth. They're just mothers, fathers, grandparents, veterans, businessmen. They just care about their country, and that's what binds them together.
So, what do you see as you're looking at the future of the Tea Party movement, short term, like say in the next 3 to 6 months? What are you envisioning, John?
On a national level, I think you're going to see this movement be a very potent political force, and I think you're going to see Democrats, Republicans, and everyone in between. If they want to keep their jobs or if they're running for office, start listening to the concerns of this movement.